Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we bring you a romantic love story. So let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our meaningful stories. New York, on an October afternoon. The first autumn breezes swept golden leaves across the path of Central Park. Eliza Moore, her worn sneakers hurrying along the stone-paved walkway, clutched a briefcase full of documents. Her brown hair, tied high, swayed with each glance at her watch. Only 15 minutes remained until her interview at a private school in northern Manhattan, her last chance to escape a string of unemployed days and mounting bills. "Stay calm, Eliza," she muttered, trying to reassure herself. "You've prepared thoroughly. They'll like you." But deep down, she wasn't so sure. 3 months since her old school cut its budget, her confidence had worn thin, like the soles of her shoes. As she rounded a bend near the lake, a faint sound stopped her. Crying, not the loud sobs of a tantrum-throwing child, but soft, stifled hiccups, like someone trying to hide their fear. Eliza turned her eyes, scanning the wooden benches beneath the streetlights that had just begun to flicker on in the dusk. There, on a bench near a row of oaks, a boy sat huddled, arms wrapped around his knees. His navy jacket was streaked with mud, and his red-rimmed eyes glistened in the golden-orange light. Eliza glanced at her watch, her heart racing. "I don't have time," she thought, but her feet, as if with a will of their own, moved toward the boy. She knelt down, keeping just enough distance not to startle him. "Hey, are you okay?" Her voice was gentle, the way she used to speak to her students. The boy looked up, his small face smudged but his eyes bright with intelligence. He didn't answer right away, only pressed his lips together, hands gripping the edge of his jacket. I can't find my dad," he finally whispered, his voice trembling. Eliza smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "Oh, so you're playing hide-and-seek with your dad? But he's too good, huh?" She winked, hoping for a smile, but he just shook his head, his eyes welling up again. "No, I'm lost. I don't know the way back." Eliza's heart tightened. She looked around. The park was growing emptier. Families with strollers and joggers had vanished, leaving only the sound of the wind and flickering lights. "All right, don't worry," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'll help you find your dad. What's your name?" "Theo," the boy replied, his voice small but clear. "Theo Blackwood." "Nice to meet you, Theo. I'm Eliza." She stood holding out her hand. "Come on, let's go to the park security office. They can call your dad from there." Theo hesitated, then took her hand. His small hand was ice cold, making Eliza instinctively squeeze it to share some warmth. As they walked, she chatted to ease his fear, about the squirrels in the park, a cartoon she'd watched with her students, the chocolate cookie she promised to buy if he smiled. And he did smile, just a small, fleeting one. At the security office, an older guard with salt and pepper hair jotted down Theo's information. "Blackwood, huh?" he mumbled, eyebrows raised. "Sounds familiar." Eliza didn't notice, too busy wiping mud off Theo's jacket with a tissue. She told him a silly story about her childhood dog, making him laugh again. "I like you," Theo said suddenly, his eyes brightening. "You're like a teacher from a book." Eliza laughed, her heart warming. "I am a teacher, and you're a pretty awesome student." She ruffled his hair, unaware that the office door had just opened. A deep, cold voice cut through the air. "Theo!" Eliza looked up, and for a moment the air seemed to thicken. The man standing there was tall, his black suit tailored to a commanding presence. His dark hair was neatly combed, but his gray eyes were piercing, as if they could see through everything. He stepped forward, not glancing at her, focused only on Theo. The boy ran to him, clinging to his leg. "Dad!" Theo exclaimed, his voice still tinged with a tremor. Eliza stood, stepping back, suddenly feeling out of place. The man, clearly Theo's father, knelt down, checking his son with careful but emotionless precision. "You don't leave the car without James," he said, his tone even but heavy. "Understood." Theo nodded, looking down. Eliza frowned. Didn't he see how scared the boy had been? She cleared her throat, keeping her voice gentle. "Hi, I'm Eliza Moore. I found him sitting alone in the park, so I brought him here to contact family." The man's gaze shifted to her, and for the first time, Eliza felt a true chill. He looked her up and down, as if assessing a threat. Thank you, he said, but his voice held no warmth. I'm Aiden Blackwood. I'll take it from here. Eliza nodded, forcing a polite smile. He's a good kid. Just maybe a bit scared. You should check if he's okay. She hadn't meant to lecture, but Theo's lonely eyes wouldn't let her stay silent. Aiden raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise passing before it vanished. I know how to care for my son, he replied, his tone sharper. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. If you need compensation for your time, contact my assistant. Eliza stiffened, her blood heating. Compensation? He thinks I did this for money? She pressed her lips together, pushing the card back. No need. I just wanted to help. Have a good evening. Without waiting for a reply, she turned and left the office, irritation simmering inside her. Outside, the cold wind made her shiver. Eliza checked her phone. She was 10 minutes late for her interview. She sighed, knowing the opportunity was likely gone. But as she walked away, Theo's red-rimmed eyes haunted her. That boy needed someone who cared, not a father cold as ice. In a black Bentley parked by the road, Aiden sat in the back, Theo asleep on his lap. He stared out the window, his gaze unfocused. In his hand, he unconsciously gripped Eliza's business card, the one she'd refused. Her name was printed simply, Eliza Moore, elementary teacher. He frowned, a strange feeling stirring within him. That woman wasn't intimidated by him, didn't fawn, and the way she spoke to Theo, so gentle, unusually so. Dad, Theo's sleepy voice broke his thoughts. Will Eliza come back? Aiden froze, not answering. He only ruffled his son's hair, his eyes turning to the darkness outside. Eliza pushed open the door to her small Brooklyn apartment, the creaking hinges blending with her mood. The room was pitch dark, lit only by the faint glow of streetlights filtering through thin curtains. She tossed her briefcase onto the table, not bothering to turn on the light, and sank into the worn armchair. The interview that afternoon had been a disaster. The interviewer, with a politely fake smile, said they needed someone with more experience. A diplomatic way to reject a 26-year-old teacher fired due to school budget cuts. She opened her phone, and a bank notification glared back. Her account barely had enough for this month's rent. Eliza sighed, rubbing her temples. Her dream of opening a free community classroom for underprivileged kids felt increasingly out of reach. Just one chance, and she muttered, but her voice faded into the silent room. Just then her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Eliza frowned, hesitating, but answered. Hello. Good evening, Ms. Moore, a professional female voice said. This is Sarah, Mr. Aiden Blackwood's assistant. He'd like to meet with you to discuss a job opportunity. Are you free tomorrow morning? Eliza froze, her mind reeling. Aiden Blackwood, the cold man from the park. His image, sharp suit, suspicious eyes, flashed vividly. What kind of job? She asked, her voice slightly unsteady. A private tutor for his son, Theo. Details will be discussed in person. Can you come to the Westchester estate at 10 a.m.? Eliza bit her lip. Her impression of Aiden was far from positive. He treated her like a nosy stranger, even offering compensation for helping his son. But then she thought of Theo, his red-rimmed eyes, his shy smile when she told a joke. That boy needed someone who cared, not a father who treated emotions like a business deal. And if she refused, would another opportunity come at a time like this? I'll be there, she finally said, though her heart was full of doubt. The next morning, Eliza stood before the massive iron gates of the Blackwood estate, an hour's drive from central New York. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair tied low, clutching her briefcase for reassurance. The gates opened, revealing a gravel path to a 3-story mansion with glistening glass windows under the morning sun. Perfectly trimmed rose gardens lined the way, but the air was eerily still, as if the place lacked the breath of life. An older woman with tightly bunned hair led her into the grand foyer. The opulent interior overwhelmed Eliza, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, abstract paintings on the walls. But everything was too perfect, too sterile, like a museum rather than a home. Mr. Blackwood will see you shortly, the woman said in a monotone, then disappeared behind a wooden door. Eliza stood there, feeling out of place in this alien world. She was about to sit on the pristine white sofa when a familiar voice came from the staircase. Ms. Moore. Punctual. She looked up. Aiden Blackwood descended, still in a flawless black suit, but today he seemed less tense. His gray eyes scanned her, no longer suspicious but quietly curious. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing toward the living room. Eliza nodded, following him, mentally urging herself to stay calm. The living room was vast, with an unlit fireplace and a family portrait above it. Aiden, Theo, and a blonde woman she assumed was Theo's mother. She quickly looked away, not wanting to seem nosy. Aiden sat in an armchair, motioning for her to sit opposite. "I looked into you," he began, his tone as if addressing a boardroom. "Education degree, 3 years teaching, good reviews from colleagues, but you're currently unemployed, correct?" Eliza clenched her hands, trying not to let his bluntness rattle her. "Yes, my old school had budget issues, but I'm still looking for opportunities." Eliza's chest ached, a quiet kind of hurt that made her wish she could gather up all the broken pieces in this boy's heart and stitch them back with thread, spun from lullabies and starlight. She didn't push, just let the silence breathe. In that stillness, Theo picked up the yellow pencil again and colored in the petals one by one, like it mattered, like each flower was a memory he didn't want to lose. "That's really special, Theo," she said softly, her voice like the hush of wind through tall grass. "Would you like to draw it again sometime? Maybe show it to someone important." Theo glanced at her, then at the door, as if expecting Aiden to appear in his stiff suit in silence. "He wouldn't get it," he said quietly. "He doesn't like when I talk about her." Eliza nodded slowly. She didn't say your father's wrong, though the words hovered at the edge of her tongue. Instead, she said, "Then we'll keep it just between us and the stars." That made Theo smile, just the smallest curve of his lips, like a crescent moon in a stormy sky. Later, after packing up, Eliza lingered at the gates of the Blackwood estate, fingers brushing over the folded paper Theo had drawn for her. The image of the field and the sun and the tiny figure in yellow tugged at her heart. Behind her, the mansion loomed with all its sharp corners and quiet halls. But inside that house, a little boy was remembering how to dream. She looked up as the sleek black car pulled into the drive. Aiden stepped out, jacket over one arm, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't see her at first, too absorbed in whatever high-stakes conversation was unfolding. But then he did. His gaze flicked to her, paused. He ended the call with a quiet, "I'll get back to you," then approached. "I didn't know you were still here," he said, his voice neutral but not unkind. "I was just leaving," Eliza replied. She hesitated, then added, "Theo's doing really well." Aiden gave a slow nod. "He speaks about you, more than I expected." She couldn't tell if that was a compliment or a warning. "I think he misses her," Eliza said carefully, watching his reaction. Aiden stilled. The air around them shifted, like a string pulled taut. "I don't want him to forget her," he said after a moment, voice low, almost inaudible. "But I don't know how to keep her memory from hurting him." "That's the thing about memories," Eliza replied. "They can hurt, but they can also heal if you let them be shared." Aiden looked at her, then really looked, not like a CEO surveying an employee, but like a man weighing something much heavier. There was grief in his eyes and something lonelier than grief. He nodded once, just slightly, then stepped aside so she could pass. "Good night, Miss Moore." "Good night, Mr. Blackwood." As she walked down the path and out in the deepening autumn dusk, Eliza felt it again, that whisper of change in the air, like the beginning of something fragile, and maybe, just maybe, something brave. Fell silent, his hand gripping the pencil tightly. "But I can't remember her face. Does that make me bad, Miss Eliza?" The question stopped her cold. She placed a hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. "No, Theo, you're not bad at all. Sometimes memories are like stars. They fade, but they're still there in your heart." She smiled, hoping her voice was comforting enough. "Your mom must love you so much, and that never goes away." Theo looked at her, his brown eyes shimmering, then nodded. He kept drawing, but his strokes slowed, as if sadness had seeped into each line. Eliza watched, her heart heavy. She wanted to ask more, to understand the woman in his hazy memories, but she knew she had to be patient. With Theo, everything took time. The lesson ended, and while packing up, Eliza realized she'd left her planner in the downstairs living room. She told Theo to wait in the study and headed down the polished wooden staircase. The Blackwood estate was as quiet as ever, with only the steady tick of the pendulum clock echoing from the foyer. But as she passed the slightly open door of the library, she froze. A faint light spilled through the crack, along with a soft sound, like wood tapping together. Eliza meant to keep going, but curiosity made her glance inside. Aidan sat in an armchair, the desk lamp casting light on his face, sharpening his chiseled features. Before him was a small, intricately carved wooden box open on the desk. He held something, a photo or a letter. Eliza couldn't tell, but his eyes made her breath catch. They weren't the cold, commanding eyes she was used to. They held pain, raw and deep, as if he faced a wound that would never heal. His hands, usually steady and businesslike, trembled slightly as he placed the object back in the box. Eliza's heart pounded. She knew she shouldn't be here, shouldn't see this private moment, but her feet felt rooted. Then Aidan looked up. His gaze met hers through the door's crack, and for an instant, the air seemed to solidify. Eliza flinched, stepping back, but it was too late. He stood, snapping the box shut with a sharp click, and strode out. "Ms. Moore?" His voice was low, carrying a weight that made her shiver. "What are you doing?" I was just getting my planner," Eliza stammered, pointing toward the living room. "I didn't mean to." She stopped, knowing how feeble her excuse sounded. Aidan stared at her, his eyes narrowing as if gauging her trustworthiness. "My family's past isn't for you to pry into," he said, his tone icy but not angry. "You're here to teach Theo, not dig into things that don't concern you." Eliza swallowed, feeling slapped, but she didn't back down. "I wasn't digging," she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. "I care about Theo. He just talked about his mom, and I saw he was sad. If you don't want me to know anything, I respect that. But he needs to talk about how he feels." The air was taut as a wire. Aidan looked at her so long she thought he'd fire her on the spot. But then he turned away, his hand gripping the desk's edge. "Do your job," he said, his voice dropping, almost weary. "And don't let this happen again." Eliza nodded, turning to leave, her heart still racing. She grabbed her planner from the living room, but her mind was elsewhere. The image of Aidan with the wooden box haunted her. He's not just cold, she thought. He's running from pain. And for the first time, she felt a flicker of empathy for the man she'd thought untouchable. Back in the study, she found Theo still drawing, his eyes a bit brighter. "You were gone forever," he said, his tone playfully scolding. "Sorry," Eliza laughed, sitting down. "Want to tell me more about your picture?" He nodded, and as he talked about fallen stars, Eliza listened. But part of her mind lingered in the library, with the wooden box, in Aidan's pained eyes. She told herself to forget him, that her job was to help Theo, not decode her enigmatic employer. But deep down, she knew she couldn't ignore the strange feeling growing. Like she'd brushed against a locked door, and beyond it was a story she wasn't ready to face. Leaving the estate, Eliza walked through the rose garden, the sunset gilding the gravel path. She glanced back at the cold mansion, resolved to focus on Theo, on his smile. But Aidan's eyes and that small wooden box lingered in her mind like a wordless question. The small study in the Blackwood estate felt less cold now, at least to Eliza. After a month of tutoring, she transformed a corner of the wooden desk into a vibrant space with Theo's drawings, a few of his favorite science books, and a small vase of flowers she'd bought at a weekend market. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, glinting off Eliza's brown hair as she leaned over to check Theo's completed math problem. "Great job, Theo," she said, marking a red star next to the correct answer. "I bet you'll be a famous mathematician someday." Theo gave a shy smile, his brown eyes brightening. "I don't really like math," he admitted softly, "but you make it fun. At school, the teacher always tells me to hurry and I get all mixed up." Eliza tilted her head, listening. It wasn't the first time Theo had mentioned school, but today he was more open, as if the invisible wall around him was starting to crack. "Oh, I get it," she replied gently. "I used to get mixed up with multiplication tables. But you know what? It's okay to take your time. as long as you keep trying. Theo nodded, fiddling with the corner of his notebook. At school, the other kids tease me, he continued, his voice quieter. They say I don't have a mom, so no one comes to family day. I don't care, but sometimes I want to tell Mom about the stars I'm learning. Eliza's heart tightened. She'd heard bits about his mother from his scattered comments, but this was the first time he'd shared his sadness so directly. She set her pen down, scooting closer. I bet your mom would be so proud to hear you talk about the stars, she said, choosing her words carefully. And you know what? You can tell me anytime. I love hearing about it. Theo looked up, his eyes shimmering. Really? You won't get bored? Never. Eliza laughed, winking. I even want you to teach me about the Andromeda Galaxy. He giggled, a small but clear sound that seemed to brighten the room. They kept talking, about the brightest star he'd ever seen, about the time he snuck a science movie past bedtime. Eliza realized Theo wasn't just smart. He craved being heard, being himself, without fear of judgment. Near the end of the lesson, while guiding him through a short writing exercise, Theo suddenly stopped. He looked at her, hesitating, then asked in a hopeful, innocent voice, Miss Eliza, can you stay forever? The question hit like a pebble dropped into a still pond, rippling through Eliza's heart. She blinked, caught off guard, unsure how to respond. Theo's smile lingered, but his eyes held a longing that made her throat tighten. Oh, Theo, she began softly. I love teaching you, and I'll be here as long as I can. But forever is a long time, isn't it? Before he could reply, a deep voice cut through from the doorway. Yes, forever is too long. Eliza spun around, startled. Aiden stood there, hands in his suit pockets, his gray eyes coldly scanning her and Theo. She didn't know how much he'd heard, but his face, tense, almost defensive, said enough. Theo lowered his head, gripping his pencil tightly as if afraid he'd done something wrong. Eliza stood, forcing herself to stay calm. Mr. Blackwood, I didn't know you were here, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We just finished. Aiden stepped inside, his gaze fixed on her. I heard my son's question, he said, his voice low but sharp. And I want to make one thing clear, Ms. Moore. You're a tutor, not family. Don't let Theo get confused about boundaries. The word boundaries stung like an invisible slap. Eliza felt a rush of hurt and frustration. She tried so hard to help Theo feel safe, and Aiden was turning it into a mistake. I wasn't trying to cross boundaries, she replied, her voice firm despite her turmoil. I just want Theo to feel cared for. He asked because he needs comfort, not because I pushed him. Aiden's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing. Cared for? He echoed, a hint of sarcasm in his tone. You think you understand my son after a few weeks? You don't know what he's been through, or how much it'll hurt if he loses someone again. His words were a flash of light, illuminating a hidden truth. Eliza realized instantly. He wasn't just angry, he was afraid Theo would grow attached to her, only for her to leave one day, like his mother had. Her heart softened, but she didn't back down. I don't make promises I can't keep, she said, her voice quieter, sincere. But I promise I won't hurt Theo. He deserves to be loved, Mr. Blackwood, and you can't stop him from feeling that. The air was thick with tension. Aiden stared at her so long, she thought he'd fire her on the spot. But then he turned to Theo, his voice softer though still rigid. Go get your jacket, son. James is waiting. Theo nodded quietly, leaving the room, not without a worried glance at Eliza. When they were alone, Aiden faced her again, his eyes still cold, but with a flicker of something else. You're doing your job well, he said almost reluctantly, but don't let it go too far. For everyone's sake. He left before she could respond, leaving Eliza standing there, her emotions tangled. She packed up, but her mind spun with Aiden's words. He's afraid of losing, yet pushes everyone away. She thought of Theo, his innocent question, and wondered if she had the strength to stay when his father built such high walls. Leaving the estate, Eliza walked down the gravel path, the chilly autumn breeze cutting through her. She glanced back at the looming mansion, its windows glowing gold. Should I keep going? She wondered, unsure of the answer. But Theo's smile, and even Aiden's fleeting look of vulnerability, echoed inside her. Maybe, just maybe, the story was only beginning. His voice was even, composed, but it carried a firmness that quieted the entire table. Eliza felt her heart race, not from embarrassment, but from something else entirely, a sense of being defended. Richard raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying the tension. Ah, a tutor. How very hands-on. The implication hung in the air like thick fog, and Laia, never one to stay quiet, leaned forward with a sweet but deadly smile. And you are the waiter? Theo giggled before he could stop himself, quickly slapping a hand over his mouth. Even Aiden's lips twitched in amusement, though he schooled his expression quickly. Richard chuckled and backed off with a raise of his palms. Touché. Well, I'll let you enjoy your evening. Nice meeting you, Miss Moore. He tipped an invisible hat before walking away, his cologne lingering longer than his presence. As soon as he left, Eliza exhaled. That was awkward. Aiden looked at her. You handled it well. I didn't do anything. You didn't have to. His tone was softer now, and again, that unfamiliar warmth slipped through his otherwise controlled demeanor. Laia, now positively buzzing from the romantic tension, cleared her throat. Well, that was a scene straight out of a drama. Do you guys rehearse these in the Blackwood mansion, or is it just natural talent? Eliza rolled her eyes, sipping her wine. You're impossible. Theo leaned into her. I like your friends. Eliza smiled down at him. They're loud but loyal, like golden retrievers. As dessert arrived, a shared tiramisu, Theo reached for a spoon and took a bite, making a delighted face. This tastes like clouds and dreams. Aiden blinked at his son, a small smile ghosting across his lips again. You've been reading too many of Miss Eliza's fairy tales. Eliza laughed. He needs a little magic now and then. Their eyes met again, and this time she didn't look away. She held his gaze, letting the silence say the thing neither of them could name yet. Not out loud, not here, not now. But it was there. A shift, a spark. By the time Aiden stood and placed his napkin on the table, the atmosphere had changed. We should be going. It's past someone's bedtime. Theo pouted but obeyed, hugging Eliza tightly before scampering toward the door. Aiden hesitated. Thank you again for tonight. And before? With Theo? She nodded. Always. He paused. Would you consider staying on longer? As his tutor, I mean. Not just weekends. Her heart tripped over itself. You'd want that? He met her gaze. I think he does. And maybe I do too. And then, before she could respond, he was walking away, hand resting protectively on Theo's shoulder. She watched them go, the door chiming softly behind them. Leia turned to her, eyes wide. Okay. That man wants to kiss you so bad, it's practically a subplot now. Eliza laughed, but her hand went to her chest. Her heart was still beating wildly. She hadn't even noticed it racing, not until it started beating. For both of them, Eliza's hand paused midair, her breath catching as Theo's fragile question lingered between them. But I can't remember her face. Does that make me bad, Miss Eliza? The study's afternoon light seemed to still in that moment, as if the house itself held its breath. Eliza knelt beside him, gently squeezing his small shoulder. No, Theo, she whispered, voice warm and steady. Memories can fade like distant stars, but their light never truly disappears from your heart. She smiled, reaching for his hand. Your mother loves you more than anything. That never changes. For a heartbeat, Theo's eyes glistened. Then, drawing a slow breath, he dipped his pencil back to the page, each stroke weaving sorrow and hope into his sketch. Eliza watched him, heart heavy with the fierce tenderness of a teacher whose care had grown into something deeper, a promise to stay. When the session ended, Eliza rose to retrieve her planner from the foyer. The ornate corridors were hushed except for the pendulum clock's soft tick. Passing the library, a sliver of lamplight in a rhythmic tapping beckoned her curiosity. Inside, Aiden stood before an open rosewood box, his face lit by the gentle glow of a single lamp. He trembled as he placed a faded photograph, pale with age, back onto velvet. Pain flickered in his gray eyes, vulnerability so raw it stole Eliza's breath. He caught her gaze, and with that single look, the house's walls seemed to shudder. Eliza recoiled, guilt and fascination warring in her chest. Aiden's voice was low, brittle. This is my past. None of your concern. Stumbling, Eliza stammered, I only wanted to teach Theo, he finished, cold steel in his tone. That is your only job here. His silhouette stiffened in the lamplight. Do not let your sympathy stray. Eliza nodded, shame and resolve twisting together. She fled down the hall, the echo of his footsteps pounding in her ears. Back in the study, Theo looked up as she re-entered. You were gone forever, he teased, voice small. Sorry, Eliza smiled, ruffling his hair. As he spoke of stars and galaxies, her mind drifted back to Aiden's tremor, the locked box, the grief she glimpsed. Outside, the rose garden shimmered in a sudden autumn rain. Eliza pressed on through the patter of droplets, determined to bury her curiosity and focus on the boy who needed her. Yet Aiden's silent sorrow pulsed in her veins, beckoning her toward a secret she was unprepared to unveil. 1 month later, the cold study corner had bloomed with Theo's drawings, colorful galaxies perched among open textbooks. Sunlight danced across Eliza's hair as she praised Theo's math. Great job! You'll be famous one day. Only for him to confess shyly, I hate math, but you make it fun. She laughed, but her gaze drifted to Theo's quieter confession. They tease me at school. No mom at family day. Eliza's chest ached. She scooted closer. Your mother would be so proud of you. In that moment, she realized Theo needed more than an instructor. He needed a guardian for his heart, and she would not let him be alone. On a wet October evening, her phone rang. Clara's urgent whisper froze her. Theo has a fever. The doctor needs you. Without thought, Eliza raced back, drenched, to find Theo shivering in bed. Seated beside him, she soothed his brow with a damp cloth, whispering of a fallen star waiting for him to heal. Aiden arrived quietly then, watching her care. The room's warmth, her warmth, stirred something in him. His gratitude was wordless, genuine. Thank you, he murmured, vulnerable for the first time. Her heart thudded with a tenderness she had tried to deny. I'm here, she said softly, always. Rumors erupted. A scandalous tabloid alleged Eliza's ulterior motives. The headlines, Young Tutor Seduces Billionaire, stabbed her resolve. At Theo's school, whispers followed her through the halls. Mrs. Harris warned, public opinion doesn't forgive easily. Betrayed by gossip, Eliza resolved to resign, to shield Theo from further harm. But when she offered her letter to Aiden in the study's lamplight, he refused to accept it. With shock and fury, Aiden declared, You don't abandon my son. His first-name invitation, Eliza, trembled in the charged silence. I need you, he admitted, voice raw. Tears stung her eyes. Then I'll stay. For him. In the golden hush of sunset, they gathered at a small Italian table. Eliza, Aiden, Theo, and Eliza's friends. Laughter crackled like fire. Aiden's rare smile, gentle, uncertain, unlocked something tender in the spaces between them. That night, driving her home, Aiden offered to escort her. In his Bentley's hush, he confessed, Theo doesn't laugh like that often. You make him feel safe, Eliza returned, warmth blooming between them. At her door, his lingering gaze held gratitude and something deeper. A private dinner in the estate's grand dining room brought them closer still. Over candlelight and chocolate mousse, they shared fears and griefs, his wife's death, her lonely childhood. Pain became understanding. Walls cracked. On the balcony, silvered by moonlight, they touched hands. Eliza's promise. You deserve happiness too, hovered unsaid. Aiden watched her leave, heart pounding at the threshold of something new. When rumors threatened to uproot all they had built, Aiden drove Eliza back to the study. With fierce protectiveness, he declared, I will not let her go. Theo peered around the corner, eyes bright. Miss Eliza? Aiden wrapped an arm around his son. She stays, he said, then turned to Eliza, voice unguarded. I need you, for him and for me. Soft light glinted on the rosewood desk, where a single vase of daisies whispered hope. Outside, the night was quiet. No scandal, no boundaries, Just the promise of 3 lives intertwined by care, courage, and the fragile beauty of a shared heart. Eliza's breath caught in her throat as Theo's small, trembling plea, "Don't go, please don't go," echoed in the foyer. She knelt, forcing a reassuring smile through the tears, and held him close. Aiden stood just behind them, his fists clenched as if willing himself forward, yet held back by some invisible barrier. Gently, Eliza pried Theo's hands from her waist. "I'll be back soon, Theo. I promise." His muffled sob followed her all the way to the bus stop, and by the time she reached her Brooklyn apartment, the silence felt as cold as the empty hall she'd left behind. That night, Eliza sat on her sofa, clutching the drawing of their 3-figure house, the child's mother still a blank circle, wondering if she'd done the right thing. At the same moment, back at Blackwood Estate, Aiden stared at the same picture, dust motes dancing in the lamplight as he realized how hollow the mansion felt without her warmth. Theo, once eager to talk of stars and galaxies, had grown quiet, shoulders stooped beneath the weight of her absence. Unable to bear it, Aiden drove through the rain to Eliza's building. He found only drawn curtains and a note in his own handwriting. "We need to talk. For Theo." But he knew it wasn't only for their son. He'd uncovered the source of the malicious tabloid rumor, forced a public apology, yet none of it brought Eliza back. He climbed the stairs to the small apartment and knocked until his knuckles ached, longing to see her gentle smile once more. Inside, Eliza's world was muted, every trace of their time together slipping like sand through her fingers. Then her phone buzzed, a video message from Theo and Aiden. Theo's bright face begged her to attend his birthday party. "I want you to come so much." Then Aiden's voice, quietly urgent, "Ms. Moore, Theo needs you. So do I. 7 p.m. tomorrow." The next evening, Eliza stood at the ornate iron gates of the estate, heart pounding. Soft piano music drifted on the autumn air. Inside, blue balloons bobbed beside flickering candles. Friends and colleagues mingled warmly around a chocolate cake. Theo bolted into her arms. Aiden watched from the hearth, relief and something deeper shining in his eyes. Throughout the celebration, Eliza's unease melted in the glow of Theo's laughter and Aiden's gentle presence. When she presented a handmade picture book, The Family of Stars, Theo's eyes sparkled as he hugged her. Aiden raised a glass of juice in her honor. "You've brought joy back into our lives," he said. Then, drawing her close, he whispered, "I don't want to lose you again. Give us a chance." Tears glistened in her eyes as she took his hand. "For Theo, and for you," she whispered, her voice trembling with hope. 6 months later, spring had unfurled in Brooklyn. Outside Starlight Scholars, Eliza's new community classroom, complete with a sign of little stars, children's laughter rang through the air. Aiden arrived at sunrise with muffins in hand, and Theo ran into Eliza's arms. "Happy first day of spring, Mom," he beamed. That evening, back at Blackwood Estate, now alive with family photos and Theo's galaxy of drawings, Eliza, Aiden, and Theo sat on the rose garden porch swing. Fireflies danced among the blossoms, and the world felt at peace. Eliza rested her head on Aiden's shoulder as Theo pressed a hand into each of theirs, his smile reflecting the truth they discovered together. Love, once given and received, can heal every wound and light every path home.